Did you just go live with me and yawning?
Yes, I did. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Lee Camp, joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield, who is waving at the camera.
It puts a lot of pressure on me when you say that.
To say
I really
hello?
wish you would stop saying that. No, when you say amazing, especially right now when I'm really tired, it puts a lot of pressure on me, and I wish you wouldn't do it.
All right. The
Thank you.
moderately amazing Eleanor Goldfield.
No, sometimes amazing. Sometimes really fucking tired.
The really fucking tired Eleanor Goldfield.
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. So we're going to get into a lot of things, but we're going to start off with the absolutely gruesome, disgusting, repulsive reality that is that Israel's behavior towards Gaza and their ongoing genocide, and it just keeps getting worse. And here's what Robert in Lakesh is saying. He does great journalism on Gaza. He says Israel's ground invasion of Gaza begins with one of the deadliest mornings yet. From land, air, and sea, northern Gaza is being bombed nonstop. The dead are too many to count. At least 9 populated civilian buildings bombed after 8 weeks of starvation. Where is the media? And of course, he means the mainstream media is barely covering this.
Also, yesterday was Nakba Day, in case.
Yes, which I think was part of Israel's point. Let's be as brutal as possible on the day they the day they remember the Nakba. And yes, to those of you in the chat, it is only here for Eleanor Day.
Aw, warm fuzzy feeling, no offense. Thanks. I am only here for you guys.
Al Jazeera is... Wait, you're not here for me?
I was wondering how long
I'm getting left out of everything here. Jeez.
I was wondering how long it would take you to get the joke.
Al Jazeera is saying airstrikes have reportedly killed hundreds of people in Gaza as Israel intensified its bombardment in line with a plan for quote-unquote conquest of Gaza. That's the word Netanyahu is now using. That added to the 143 reported killed the previous day and pushed the overall death toll in the Palestinian territory to more than 53,000, which 53,000 is way low. We've covered that many times.
At least 3 times that.
Well, and that's from bombs, but once you include starvation and disease, and it's well over 300,000. May even be nearing 350,000.
Well, and not only that, but starvation, but also I'm not going to describe it in detail because it's horrible, but you see videos or images of people who have had limbs amputated, but they don't have the medical supplies to ensure that things like gangrene don't set in. So people are dying of totally avoidable complications from things like amputations, or even just like a wound from shrapnel or something like that. They're dying because they don't have the appropriate medical supplies to deal with it. So those are not counted as the direct death count, when of course they should be, because people don't just walk around normally and have their legs amputated. So it's like those should be considered in the overall death count, but they're not. So whatever death count you see that's official is like many times under the actual death count.
And I highlighted the end of the sentence just because I wanted to show that even Al Jazeera is still doing this, where they say it's an onslaught. Israel launched its onslaught on October 2023 after a Hamas attack that killed around 1,200 Israelis. But I and many others have covered extensively, and even Israeli media has admitted hundreds of people were killed by Israel on October 7th. So to keep pretending that the number is 1,200 killed by Hamas is it's not true. It's not true. And I hate that, even outlets that are doing an okay job on Gaza continue to say that like it's mandatory.
Well, and honestly, I think a lot of them do it because, I've had this conversation with a few people, that a lot of journalists, especially nonprofits, because the nonprofit, zombie bill that's targeting nonprofits that speak about Gaza, because that's back. A lot of people feel that they have to do like the yes and, as if to say like, okay, so Hamas killed these many people on October 7th. So here's what's happening. And then like, use that as like the way to get to the shit that's happening now,
which
is dumb.
Kind of like you got to say Putin's a dictator right before you talk about Ukraine.
Right. It's like it's a way. It's kind of like the way to like smooth things over. Like, hey, don't come after me and shut down my outlet. I'm giving you this. Here you go. Hamas bad. And now also these many people have been killed for no reason. So it's like, I feel like a lot of people are doing this, which is also scary. And it really speaks to this kind of self-censorship. It speaks to a, complying in advance issue that I think a lot of people are grappling with in these times, and how fascism is very much like it's in our minds a lot. Not that it's not happening, but it takes over, it occupies our mental space a lot, so that we end up complying in advance even before we've been explicitly asked to, take this down or do this that way or whatever.
Complying in advance. I like that.
Yeah, it's not mine. I don't know whose it is, but I've heard it several times.
That follows an announcement by Netanyahu last week that the military campaign would be intensified should Hamas fail to agree to a deal. Of course, Israel has sunk all the deals. So,
and if should Hamas fail to agree
to a deal to release the remaining captives by the time U.S. President Donald Trump finished his tour of the Middle East, basically. Israel saying, if you don't give us all the captives, we're going to do exactly what we've been doing, except amped up a little more. And it's like, what make, like, Israel only has one gear. It's just murder, 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 death. There's no other way of going about this. And it hasn't worked, right? They've been killing their own hostages. So their own people. Trump was due to wrap up his 4-day tour, which did not include a visit to Israel. Israel's war on Gaza has killed at least 53,000. And, we just discussed the numbers. But the Gaza Strip's government media office has updated the death toll to 61,700, saying thousands of others missing under the rubble are presumed dead. So if you add, so that would be 61,700 is getting closer to those killed just by bombs. The over 300,000 is once you include famine and disease and everything else. But because we've often said that the 53,000 is without the missing people being counted.
I'd also, like, since we're on the topic of the health ministry and things like that, I would like to bounce over to this one. I know it's on Instagram, which you really love.
Oh my God, do I love Instagram. If Instagram wants to pay us to as a sponsor, that'd be like amazing.
So this is a post by an organization called Medicaid Palestine. And the Ministry of Health in Gaza has issued urgent warnings about a catastrophic collapse in the healthcare system. This is posted today, Friday, the 16th of May. Israel's 75-day total blockade, forced displacement orders, and bombardments on tents, hospitals, and schools continue to drive a growing number of casualties, displacement, and extreme levels of deprivation. And they go through some of the numbers that include 686 attacks on healthcare areas in Gaza, affecting 122 health facilities and 180 ambulances. And basically, and numbers, just some more numbers about access to medical care, but no food, like not any food has entered Gaza in the past 75 days. No medical supplies have come in at least that long. A friend of mine is a doctor in central Gaza, and he has not, like, even during the quote unquote ceasefire, they weren't getting medical supplies in. So they've had to make do basically since this whole latest episode of the Nakba has started on October 7th. They haven't had access to appropriate medical supplies. And this is also part of that, death toll. So patients with chronic and severe conditions like kidney failure, cancer, blood disorders, and heart disease don't have medicine. These should be included in the death toll, because these people would not die of shit that people would be able to address and either cure or at least treat, so these people could live long lives, if they weren't under a medical blockade. So this should absolutely be considered in the death toll that goes on, that goes on Israel's record, if anybody's even keeping track anymore. Since the 22nd of April, only one patient has been medically evacuated. Around 12,500 patients, including over 4,000 children, remain in urgent need of medical evacuation. So this is, I mean, and there are continued attacks on hospitals. For instance, one journalist was murdered while he was trying to recover from burns that he sustained in a different attack. He was targeted inside of a hospital, inside the European hospital in Gaza. So they are not only not allowing people the necessities to recuperate, they're actually bombing the hospitals that are basically not functioning as hospitals. They're functioning as, emergency triage centers that have some walls left. They don't have the supplies that would actually make them that will actually distinguish them as hospitals. And while this is not obviously the point of what's happening in Gaza, I think it's important to draw connections, not to try and lessen the severity of what's happening in Gaza, but to make the connection to what's happening here. A few days ago, there were Medicaid hearings about basically slashing Medicaid, which is already
It's coming up.
What do you mean it's coming up?
We're going to cover that.
Okay, but I just wanted to make this quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
That Medicaid was like barely hanging on anyway. I think it's important to make the connection that the extreme genocidal violence that Gazans are experiencing vis-a-vis Israel's blockade and bombing and targeted killings and things like that is not a disparate issue from the cuts to basic health care in this country. The fact that people die of totally curable diseases or of cancer that can be treated because they don't have access via money to the myriad options that we actually have in this country is also violence. It should also be considered a death by the United States government, just as these Gazans who are dying of totally curable and treatable diseases in Gaza should be considered a death that is on the tally of Israel's murders. So I'm making that connection not to try and say that they're the same thing at all, but to say that these are part of the same oppressive systems, particularly when you consider the fact that Israel is essentially a United States colony.
Yeah, no, they are related. And in fact, we are going to, in a moment, to talk about how they're related as well. I wanted to show this as well. I'm having more trouble than normal finding the things I wanted to pull up.
Take your time. You do you.
I'm stressed. This from Eamon Bashar says Israel didn't even wait for the cameras to turn off or the applause for Eden Alexander's release to fade before admitting that 3 Palestinian hostages from Gaza had been tortured to death in its prisons. Not during combat, not in airstrikes, but in cages, stripped of rights and humanity. Their names weren't announced with sirens or headlines. No helicopters hovered. No world leaders offered thoughts and prayers. Just a quiet confession that behind the scenes, torture to death is policy. In Israel's calculus, 1 Israeli life merits global grief. 3 Palestinian corpses are just a footnote. We are seeing again and again the hypocrisy about which lives matter. Palestinian lives do not essentially matter on the world stage, while each Israeli life is considered sacred, and it's repulsive. And these people are completely morally bankrupt, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let's see. I don't think I'm going to do that one anymore. Okay, we're going to get to actually the story about Medicaid. You mentioned a second ago. In just a second, I just wanted to, and this kind of relates, although this is about Medicare, but I just wanted to say today's sponsor, who's been helping sponsor the show, is Chapter. And Chapter is a free, I repeat, free Medicare navigation and advice service. If you're 65 or older, or your parents are, Chapter, it can be incredibly helpful. It helps you understand the 24,000 plans that are offered by Medicare and Medicare Advantage and Medigap. 24,000. And you have to try and navigate them. And that's where Chapter comes in. 96% of the people who use Chapter return to use it the following year. Seniors have historically saved over $1,000 a year. Chapter has near perfect reviews online and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau, and it's free. So check out Chapter, see if it's right for you or your parents. You can either go to askchapter.org/camp, my last name, or call 757-349-8232. All this info will also be in the description of this episode. And yeah, it's free. So hopefully it can help you or your parents. All right. Thank you, Dan, for supporting the show. Appreciate that as well. Goddamn right. Okay. So let's get to GOP trying to, and it is mostly the GOP, trying to slash Medicaid. GOP is trying again to cut Medicaid. Republicans again have their eyes on Medicaid. Where? Oh man, I lost it. Oh no, here it is. All right, I'll show that in a second. Well, no, I'll show it right now.
Go buy some Ben and Jerry's, y'all.
Yeah, Ben connected Medicaid and Israel, the two issues, as he was dragged out of Congress. This is Ben Cohen from Ben and Jerry's. I know him a little bit, and he has been doing more and more great work and protest work. He was arrested in front of the State Department. I was there at that time. That was over a year ago. But anyway, here he is getting dragged out of Congress, protesting this genocide.
Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room.
Ben, why are you getting arrested?
Move down the hallway. If you stop, you will be arrested.
Poor kids in Gaza by buying bombs and pays for it by kicking kids off Medicaid in the U.S.
Ben, what are you calling for the Congress and senators to do for Gaza?
They need to let food into Gaza. They need to let food into starving kids. Congress is paying to bomb poor kids in Gaza and paying for it by kicking poor kids off Medicaid in the U.S.
I just like to point out that I think it's hilarious that they call Congress the House of the People.
Right.
Remember,
Ben, what are you?
Sorry. Yeah. No, you if you stand up or speak, you will be dragged out. And as you can see, they do not drag you out in a friendly and kind way. They violently drag you out of Congress if you stand up and say something. This is while they are perpetrating a genocide. So, and Ben Cohen was connecting the two issues of Israel and the cuts to Medicaid. And yeah, there are ongoing attacks on Medicaid. Republicans have their eyes on Medicaid. The government health program for those with low incomes or disabilities, a GOP proposal unveiled this week, would require many enrollees to prove they're working, volunteering, or studying, and it would also cause them to shoulder more of the cost of their care. Changes are needed, conservative lawmakers say, because the program is broken and costs too much. Medicaid's annual price tag has soared from $590 billion to $900 billion today. Yeah, why has it soared? It has soared because you know who still gets paid? The health insurance companies, the health care companies, the big pharma. Like the U.S. government is paying those crazy prices when they pay for Medicaid,
Which have gone up
for these medications that in other countries cost 1/10, sometimes 1/100th of the price.
Also, I'd like to point out that it's probably more now, but like 10, 15 years ago, 1 out of every $3 spent on healthcare, and that includes Medicaid, Medicare, whatever, is spent on admin. Because because like your thing says, like there are 24,000 like options for. I mean, that's dumb. What if we all just had healthcare from the moment we're born to the moment you croak, and that's it? Yeah. There's no this plan, that plan would choose the. Then guess what? You get rid of all of the bullshit admin, And you just like those people can get jobs doing shit that is way more useful to society than telling people they can't have health care.
Yeah, people seem because they're confused on this because Republicans, plenty of Democrats as well, want them to be confused on this. They go, oh, Medicaid or Medicare is costing the government so much. We don't have that kind of money. And let's ignore the fact that, yeah, we do fuck that kind of money. Okay, we've got $1 trillion for the military every year, but ignore that. The reason it costs a lot is because of this insane system we have. There are countries that are 1 million times poorer than the United States that somehow can pay for healthcare for all their citizens. How do you think that is? Do you think it's because they just came across $900 billion? No, it's because what the government is paying is in a system that is meant to enrich a tiny number of assholes. So if you got rid of that system, and like you said, all the bureaucracy, all the middlemen, mainly men, all the middle people.
Middle people doesn't sound.
Yeah, it sounds like you're almost insulting little people. No, all the middle people. Then it wouldn't cost nearly what it does. Like that's how you fix it. You get rid of the whole thing. And back when there were some efforts in Obamacare and stuff. To change things, people ran around going, we can't just have free healthcare. It's 1/6 of our economy. Well, that's fucked up. It shouldn't be. And yeah, sorry, our economy will take a hit so that everyone can have free healthcare.
It actually wouldn't.
I know. What in their system it would, but yeah.
What do you mean their system? We have the same system.
No, I mean you'd have a bunch of rich people not getting as rich.
Well, yes, that. But actually, like universal health care would cost less money.
Yeah, kind of like housing everybody who's chronically homeless would actually cost less money than leaving them homeless because of all the city costs of dealing with homeless. Yeah.
Again, this was like 15 years ago. $1 out of every $3 on admin. You would need that. That's trillions of dollars over the course of 10, 15 years.
By the way, I just want to thank Mark Dansky for donating over on Rumble. Solidarity. Mark Dansky says they called a chapter and they got helpful, clear advice. Well, that's cool. But yes, they are going at Medicare. Let's see if I read all the part. There's a little more here. In the past 8 years, Medicaid enrollment has surged to record highs. Good. People should be getting free health care.
Well, it also speaks to the fact that the economy is crashing and people don't have other other options.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you can just get Medicaid. You have to prove that you're Medicaid eligible, which is dumb. But so that actually speaks to the fact that more and more people are living in poverty and need Medicaid to get basic health care.
Yeah, more people in poverty. Absolutely. With the COVID-19 driving numbers up and 9 more states expanding the program to cover more low-income Americans. Oh, the tragedy, including 6 controlled by Republicans. More enrollees, particularly in red states, means more constituents who rely on Medicaid to cover their health costs, making it harder for lawmakers to approve cuts. So basically, red states are now have a lot more people on Medicaid. All of a sudden, they kind of don't want to cut it as much. More than 3/4 of the public opposes major cuts to Medicaid. This doesn't matter. Yeah, this is hugely popular. I mean, yes, free healthcare entirely would be more popular, but I'm just saying in our broken system, Medicaid is hugely popular. 75% of the country says it should exist, and that includes 55% of Republicans. But these rich oligarchs who rule our Congress and rule our Oval Office, they want to cut it so that they can give themselves tax cuts and shift the money around that way.
Oh, and go back to
anyway, this article. Sorry.
No. Go back to our stream.
Oh, sorry.
Timothy made a good point. If you have health care through your employer, wages are so low that most people can't afford the co-pays for anything halfway serious. That's also a really good point. And something that I experienced when I had healthcare through my employer in Los Angeles, I couldn't pay for the co-pays anyway. So it was like I basically didn't have healthcare. And so I think that's a really important point, that there's the barriers to accessing Medicaid. It's like, oh, well, you're not poor enough. Well, I'm sorry, what's poor enough? Because if I have anything even remotely serious, even actually even a lot of preventative healthcare. There are some screenings that are done for things like cervical cancer and things like that cost more money than just a regular pap smear. If they have to like go and see you again for something where they have to go in there and dig a little bit deeper, that is a different, that's not just like your regular pap smear. And so that requires more money. Well, what are you going to do if you don't have that money? I guess you'll just have cervical cancer. I mean, it's because you're not poor enough to access Medicaid. Yeah. I'm preaching the choir.
And
everybody who lives in this country knows if you're not from this country and you're listening, yes, it's this bad.
And similarly, wait, sorry, sometimes when I'm trying to stop me if you mention this, but I think you were mentioning something close to it. There are people on Medicaid who are really close to the line of how much they're allowed to make, and they won't take other jobs that they could get, like especially the freelancers or something. No, because then if I get past this line, then I can't get my Medicaid, and then I'm disabled, what have you. I would be completely screwed if I didn't get Medicaid, so I can't work anymore.
It's the same thing with housing vouchers.
How insane is that?
A lot of people get housing vouchers because they can't afford housing, but then if they make enough money to like afford food, they'll lose their housing voucher. So it's like, okay, do I want shelter or do I want to eat? Yeah. It's like these are legitimate decisions that people have to make and that people do make on a regular basis, especially people with children. It's like it is. Yeah. Okay.
As a palate cleanser, I'm going to bring up the for the day, the is it onion or is it not article.
I've seen this.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Damn it. I really wanted to surprise Eleanor.
Because we used to live right around the...
We'll get to that. She's the queen of giving away punchlines. All right. But the rest of you can decide, although you can see it's a real article. But is this the onion or is it not? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. submerges in a creek with high bacteria levels, including E. coli. And this was a creek that we used to live next to.
So there are literally signs. If you walk along Rock Creek Park, there are literally signs, like big ones, like not tiny ones, like big fucking yellow signs that say there is sewage in this creek. No, you don't swim.
You can see the sewage like pipes pumping into the. I used to go running along there a lot, and it's beautiful. The park is beautiful, but. Everyone pretty much knows that water is fecal water, and
who are these poor kids that he forced to?
His grandkids. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. shared photos of himself submerged in Rock Creek Park, in Rock Creek, with his grandchildren, despite long-standing warnings that high bacterial levels make the Potomac River tributary unsafe.
And why did he
According to because he's an idiot. According to the EPA, Rock Creek has been found to have fecal contamination from sewage and high levels of bacteria, including E. coli.
Because there's sewage in it.
And this is the guy who's the head of Health and Human Services. You'd think he might know?
No. Have you heard his? He literally said the other day that like only really sick kids should die of measles.
Oh yeah.
As if that's okay for sick children to die of a disease that was essentially eradicated until like people like him came along.
Okay.
It's like
it's okay for them to die. Agreed.
So I'm surprised you didn't force his fucking grandkids to drink.
Yeah, so that's your I just like the headline. FK Jr. submerges in creek with high bacteria levels, including E. coli. Such a strange headline. I mean, in any other world, it'd be a strange headline. In our world, it's just, it's par for the course. Okay, and we have a kind of good news story. At least it ends well.
Well, no, so this is why I wanted to bring this up also, because I think it's important. But because it's framed as a feel-good news story.
Oh, okay.
A toddler, Michaelis Antonella Espinosa Bernal, was held in the United States after her parents were deported because her father was basically, like, they said that he was connected to a gang, which he's not part of. He was deported and basically, like, sent him to that high, what is it called? The the El Salvador prison. And her mother was then also deported, and she was held in the United States. So she was essentially kidnapped by the United States. She was held by US officials.
So that's not deported. That's imprisoned.
No, her parents were deported.
Oh.
Well, either way, deported sounds too nice. They were expelled violently from the country. Her father is still missing in a high security prison. And her mother was deported, and she was held by US officials. She's 2. I don't know if you all have ever met a 2-year-old. But they're rather attached to their caregivers. And to wrench them from their caregivers and have them held basically by the Gestapo is a level of trauma that is going to stick with this child for the rest of her life. Not to mention, of course, her parents. Her father, who we don't know where he is. But CNN is touting this as a good news story. Also, they've been reunited in Venezuela, by the way, because Maduro worked very hard with Maduro's the president of Venezuela, who like the US has hated since forever, and worked very hard to try and ensure that this child could be sent from the United States to her mother. And the picture you see here is her mother and her grandmother.
And I can just add here that CNN is calling this a feel-good story because Trump's in office, so it reminds everyone Trump bad. But if this were many of the kids that were separated while Biden was in office, you wouldn't even hear a story about it because CNN wouldn't do this story because they wouldn't want you to think Biden bad.
So basically, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, claimed that they were protecting the child from her parents, who they accused without evidence, because that's not a thing, being part of the criminal group, which the U.S. dooms a foreign terrorist organization. They said the DHS said that the child's mother oversees recruitment of young women for drug smuggling and prostitution. For the child's safety, she was not removed along with the mother.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so all of that is bullshit. But let's say, hypothetically, let's say that it's true that the mother was involved in drug smuggling. It's not, but let's say that it was. Is what you're supposed to do in that situation to violently rip a family apart? Or if we had like even the slightest humanity as a system, as a state, would we then try to intervene and say, hey, what's the issue here? Are you doing this because you need money? How about this option? Or, hey, can we get you to stop that, please? Because it's really not a great environment for the child. You don't go and kidnap the fucking parents, you absolute piece of shit monsters. And then kidnap the child and put them in some kind of, I don't even know, DHS Gestapo holding cell until Maduro can like desperately try to like finagle some bullshit with your Gestapo monsters to get the kid reunited with his parents. I mean, what in the actual shit?
And let's remember that these monsters also do this to U.S. prisoners. When a woman gives birth in prison, they take the baby away almost instantly. Whereas it would be remarkably easy, this incredibly wealthy country, to have a prison housing unit. I think prison shouldn't exist, but let's assume they still do. Prison housing unit where a mother who has just given birth can raise her baby. Like it's so repulsive how quickly they take them away.
Yeah, so the father's still missing. He's in the El Salvadorian prison, and the Maduro and his government basically said they're trying to work on getting him back. But as has happened in previous examples of this, El Salvador and the U.S. basically say like, oh, we can't help you. We sent them there, and then we lost track of them. We don't care. They're not humans to the United States government. So why would they bother trying to reunite them with their families? So I wanted to cover this not just because it's important to show like what level of fascism we're at here, but also that the media, though it's not this is a CNN article. Though CNN is not saying like, oh, it's great that this child was removed from her parents and her parents were deported. They're not saying it's bad. And they're also suggesting that this is a feel-good ending. This is a good story. Like, oh, that's great. How wonderful. You know, there's a picture, again, with the trauma porn, there's a picture of the mother weeping as she holds her child and the grandmother too. It's like,
because it serves to show how evil Trump is, which CNN finds useful.
Right. As if people weren't, as if families were not separated under Biden. Different tactics under Biden, of course, but this is a systemic issue. And Trump would not be able to do this shit if the groundwork hadn't been laid before him. And the role of media in this sense is really to uplift the United States as a nation state, as a violent empire. And in order to do that, they can't say, what in the actual fuck are we doing here, people? They have to say, oh my gosh, they're reunited. That's really nice. And, you know, they might have been part of this gang thing. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, we're not really going to say that the whole thing was bad. And this really perpetuates, right? It's like the life creep. This perpetuates this feeling of normalization. Like, oh, this is really awful, but it ended well. So the next time it happens, maybe we won't make such a big stink about it because maybe it'll end well. Or maybe they really are part of a gang and so they should be punished and their kids should be traumatized forever because they did bad things. So it really cements this normalization of this overt and horrific and violent terroristic fascism. And we have to be aware of that. We have to read shit like this and be like, no, fuck you. That's not okay. Do not make this a feel-good story. This headline should be toddler kidnapped by United States government finds a way back through Venezuela's diplomacy. That should be the headline. Perhaps it's a bit verbose, but brevity is not my strong point. But you get my point. Like that should be the headline. U.S. evil in all of this, in all of the situations. What are we going to do?
Every headline should just be U.S. evil. That would solve it. Then we wouldn't have to worry about it. All right, let's. Well, since this actually fits with that story, let's do how the boosting of the ICE budgets.
This is another.
And I wish it were ICE for cocktails. I really do. I always do.
Too.
Never is.
I saw one of my favorite signs from back in the day was I prefer my ice crushed.
Ah, I like that.
Which you don't even do crushed ice anymore, do you? Unless you have like because nobody has I
don't have an ice crusher.
No, I know, but people don't use like do people use
I don't know what words you're
the thing with the press it on the freezer.
Remote control.
You put and then you press the little back thing and then
do refrigerators still
freezers
still
I mean, I'm sure they do, but
still
do
shit out
them?
Crushed ice. Still dispense crushed ice.
That's not the point.
Yeah. Okay.
So
this is back to Steven Semler, one of our favorites.
The headline, or not the headline?
Oh wait,
the first.
Everybody, click thumbs up, click share, click all those good things, and yeah, subscribe and stuff. Okay.
The first line of this, which this is another like.
Toto has the answer for you.
The first line of this, which again feels like an Onion headline. Criticizing ICE could be making a comeback among Democrats after ICE agents arrested Newark Mayor Ras Baraka on Friday, and the Department of Homeland Security threatened to arrest the 3 Democratic members of Congress who were with him. Riddle me this. Is that an Onion headline?
But I bet you they're not going to decrease the funding for ICE. I bet you even as they arrest Democrats, it's not going to happen.
No, but so after the incident, everybody's favorite flaccid progressive, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries released a statement defending his fellow Democrats and condemning the arrest and the ICE agents who physically accosted 2 congresswomen.
Flaccid progressive is a nice name for genocidal maniac. You were very sweet to him.
I like that Steven Semler also writes, I don't know what physically accosted means either. But like, so and note that he says physically accosted 2 congresswomen. He doesn't give a shit about the hundreds of other people, thousands that ICE has physically accosted. It's just when they accost
Right.
members of Congress,
Right.
right?
The
So
important people.
if your concern is only about the fact that they serve in Congress, that's not actual concern, okay? But so basically, like, Stephen's making the point here that this is all bullshit. And they care only because they themselves and their friends and their buddies who they go out in DC and have beers with, they don't want to be in the crosshairs. They want to be behind the guns steering it, right? But let's be clear, they're steering it in the same direction as the Republicans. They might not shoot quite as often, but they're steering the damn gun. So that is what Stephen's point is here too. If you look at the graph, the budget from the boosting of ICE's budget from 2016 through basically now, you see that there's an incremental rise across the aisle. Both parties have increased ICE's budget. So this idea that, you know, like the Democrats are somehow now going to come out against ICE or have in the past, no. The continuation of the you know, giving funds to this extremely violent domestic military is a bipartisan endeavor, and it will continue to be so, again, because Democrats are also steering this gun. So.
Yeah. And yeah, we've covered a lot about the just crazy mountains of money that is just dumped into. I mean, this is a sign of fascism. The inequality gets worse. The gutting of things that are meant to give the poorer people some kind of reasonable life then adds to inequality. And as you get increased inequality, people tend to protest and stand up more. There also tends to be an increase in crime because poor people commit more crimes because they're in much more difficult situations. And then the answer to that for the idiopaths at the top is to just dump more money into the guys with guns that are going to protect the status quo. So we're seeing all of those things.
So just for if there are math nerds out there, under Trump, there's been a 27% increase in ICE's budget. Under Biden, a 20% increase in ICE's budget. So
the difference was 1.6 billion under Biden and 1.8 billion under Trump.
So it's like, yeah.
There you go.
Thanks for your progressivism.
All right, I want to let everybody know there is a new episode of Unredacted tonight that just came out. I hope after this show you'll go check it out. You can go to leecamp.com/unredacted. That is that's the whole playlist, the whole YouTube playlist. It's all free to watch. For the latest episode, I get into the world's largest US-backed propaganda web that was recently revealed, kind of accidentally by Donald Trump, not because he wanted to, just he doesn't really know what he's doing. And thank you, Maria, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. But yeah, I hope you'll check that out afterwards. Click save on your tab or whatever. Open a new tab, leecamp.com/unredacted. And I also have an interview on there with former Congresswoman Marie Newman, who was basically booted from Congress a couple of years ago or a year ago or whatever. She was basically booted for supporting Palestine, supporting Palestinians. And yeah, that's interesting as well. So I hope you will check out the latest episode and click the thumbs up and all that good stuff of the latest episode of Unredacted tonight. Also, I'd like to talk about this for a moment. Eleanor has a new column up on Substack.
Ah, thanks.
If you want to give a little teaser as to what you talk about. It's just not working at the moment.
So what I talk about is, it's called You're Not Apolitical and Neither Is History. And it's basically about recognizing how we teach history matters. I know we talk a lot about how, you know, we need to learn history. We need to learn history. But I think it's also important to dissect how we learn history, particularly when we consider how this learning of history affects our allegiances. Like, to what? Can you drink some water? For F's sake.
Sorry, I'm doing my best here.
Christ on a cracker. So
I don't know what that means.
What does any of it mean, Lee? So particularly when we
Here's
consider
a photo of baby Eleanor
yes, baby Eleanor.
at Auschwitz.
No, you're just taking my water? What is this?
You talk.
So we have to consider how the way that we learn history, to what purpose is it taught in a certain way, whose aims and goals, means does it serve the way that we learn history, and in particular dissecting how Jews are taught history about the Holocaust. So yeah, check that out over at my Substack.
Yeah, it's a really great piece. I think, whether you're want to read more about, Israel and Jewish history or you don't, I think it applies to kind of the way history is taught to anyone or any group. And so that's why I think it's such an excellent essay. So.
Thanks.
EleanorGoldfield.substack.com for those of you listening to the podcast. All our stuff are also podcasts, by the way. Denise says, I'm dying over here because Lee is dying over there. Thank you. I'm glad I can make you laugh, Denise, every time I'm choking to death. You're just like Eleanor.
I have not laughed once since you were hacking up a lung. Thank you very much. I even offered you my water.
No, but you should see her if I fall down the stairs.
That's different.
That's
Completely different story.
Okay, let's get to 3 years into war, Ukrainian leftists are fighting for labor rights under martial law, which does not sound easy.
So I wanted to bring this up because some folks in the US have been talking about, like, what if martial law gets instituted or started or whatever.
Jay Tolbert, thanks for the donation over on Rumble.
So I think we oftentimes forget, because we oftentimes think of war as just like two sides, right? And it's oftentimes like good, evil, and we've talked about this before, how Ukraine has done a really excellent job since the start of this war to hollow out any kind of progressive, socialist, pro-populist, pro-people legislation, and either sell it off to the United States or just carve it out for its local oligarchs. So this is part of that. And it's a great piece on Truth Out. You can check that out over at truthout.org. But there's he's a member, I believe he's actually the president of this, sorry, I had it somewhere here. The social movement is Ukraine's largest and oldest democratic socialist organization. And Vitaly Dudin, who's 37, is the leader of this organization. And it's basically an interview with him on Truth Out. And one of the things that he points out is that there has been a significant escalation in anti-labor rhetoric and policies by the Ukrainian government. And when they just had this conversation with him, he was just fresh out of a courtroom where he went to argue a case about labor rights. And he says, this was funny, but like morbidly so. He said, class struggle in Ukraine now, it's so boring. It's boring because it's not about protest, it's judicial and other official procedures. Because since February 2022, Ukraine has been in a state of martial law, which has permitted authorities to limit public gatherings and impose a standing curfew, among other restrictions. In many cases, these regulations have been weaponized against left-wing activists fighting for labor rights. So I think there's this very problematic perspective about like Russia bad, Ukraine good, not least of all because there are legit Nazis running Ukraine, but also because we don't really talk about the people and what the people are not only dealing with, but also trying to keep struggling for. Like, people are still going to work in Ukraine. People are still trying to feed their families and do the shit of regular life under these conditions. And we just talk about the big picture. We don't look at the people, which I think is also part of our programming, right? We don't think of countries as being like the people who make up those countries. We just think of them as the power play.
This is the brain parasite of nationalism.
Right, exactly.
Nationalism is a brain parasite. It will make you not understand how the world works and get upset at the wrong things and hate the wrong people and love the wrong people. Yes. So enjoy.
So in the midst of this, Ukraine has also been waging its own war on its own people who are trying desperately to access things like basic workers' rights. And that is his point here, that limit public gatherings, impose a standing curfew. I mean, it's really, it is very, very restrictive. A law passed in Parliament in March 2022, which further cemented the erosion of labor rights. The law allows employers to fire employees who are on sick leave or vacation, expands working hours to 60 hours a week, and requires employees to do work outside the terms of their contract if it's for defense purposes, which I'm guessing they're allowed to massage that and say that anything's for defense purposes because it's in the midst of a war. And as he points out in the interview, there have been these alterations to labor policy, which basically, in all the cases, are in favor of the employers. And there's no time limit to the law. That's the other thing. So Duden is emphasizing that these alterations are meant to stay in effect even after the war ends. And this is part of like what Naomi Klein talked about with like shock doctrine, right? You do all of this shit when the population is so exhausted and just trying to survive that by the time the dust settles, they're like, I'm sorry, what? I have no rights. And by that time, it's way too late because this shit has already been cemented. I mean, it's not ever too late to fight for your rights. But my point is like, it's already been cemented because they did this shit while bombs were literally falling.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of ways to do that. One is to wait for catastrophe to happen. Another is to manifest a catastrophe so that you can say, oh my God, there's a catastrophe. We need to take away all your rights because there's a war going on, which is actually Trump's kind of doing that right now, pretending that that immigration is some sort of like invasion, like military invasion of the country. Or the other thing, and actually I kind of give it away, is to just pretend something that's not actually that bad or not bad at all is catastrophic. I mean, hell, they had us thinking that Iraqis were going to gas us with anthrax and cover your home in plastic, and people are hiding under their deck chairs, buy duct tape. So there are a lot of ways to tell your population, oh, we're at war, therefore your rights no longer need to exist.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to recognize that no nation is a monolith, right? So for instance, like this organization, it's been active since 2015, but it's come to newfound prominence since the invasion in 2022 because of its support for LGBTQ rights, socialist politics, and other issues. And I think that, yes, there is an issue of Nazis in Ukraine. Does that mean that every Ukrainian's a Nazi? No. And I think that this is also one of those moments where we have to look at the mirror image in our own nation. Is Trump our president? Yeah. Does that mean that everybody in the US wants him to be our president? No. And as we've discussed on the show before, a lot of the people that voted for him don't really like him. But they felt stuck between Genocide Joe's prodigy, who couldn't actually say what she stood for, and then Donald Trump.
Protege, but yeah.
What did I say?
Prodigy, sorry.
But yeah, so I think that it's important to recognize the nuances that exist and not just pretend that a nation or even sections of a nation are throwaway because of their government being shitty or things like that. I think that's a really important lesson that this interview and this article also reminded me of, and if y'all check it out, I hope it will remind you of the same thing. But yeah, I think it's a really important reminder of what's going on in Ukraine, and that there's a lot of domestic shit that's going on in the interest of corporate and oligarchs and corporate power and oligarchs and things like that. So that's on top of everything that the Ukrainians are dealing with at the moment.
And this is some fun news. Big Bird might start a union.
Dude, that's awesome.
Sesame Street workers are...
Please tell me they actually made a show that said U is for union. If so, I'm immediately downloading that show.
Amid attacks from the Trump administration, 74% of Sesame Street workers vote to unionize to make their workplace smarter, stronger, and kinder. Hell yes. Go Sesame Street. I can't believe it's kind of amazing they've gone this long without a union, but
I feel that way about a lot of people.
yeah, a lot of people, a lot of places. And then I just wanted to throw this in here as a warning to you guys. I'm lucky that I have not been a big Red Bull drinker, but apparently Red Bull is great for fueling cancer. A new study shows, and this is from the Independent. This isn't like tabloids, but new
it's
study.
not on like some guy's website who does nothing but eats like, grass for breakfast or something.
No, it's actually, it was a study done by Sprite that says Red Bull causes cancer. No, I'm kidding. Pepsi says Red Bull causes cancer. But anyway, a new study shows that Red Bull and Celsius, which is a popular energy seltzer water, I think, elevates risk of blood cancer.
Well, it's an ingredient in them, right?
Yeah, taurine is the ingredient that apparently. So I think I didn't read the whole article, but I think what they're saying is, in parts of it, is that it's not necessarily that it creates cancer, but if it fuels it, and so it can cause cancer to be far more deadly. But
I just so even before I knew this, I just knew that it was unhealthy because if I tasted it and I was like, this legit tastes like radioactive horse piss. Like I can't imagine anything about this being good for my body. I think I'll just stick to coffee.
So you're saying I should end my line of
intravenous Red Bull use?
No. Well, that's interesting. My new line of salsa water called radioactive horse piss. I should not.
I'd find that intriguing.
Okay.
I'd like to read the ingredients.
Yes, Alan, you are correct. It says in the article, the body makes taurine, but this has to do with the dosage. That is risky. You are absolutely right. Which dosage is kind of everything because it's like
dosage is what makes the difference. What is that? Dosage makes the poison. Isn't that the same?
Dosage makes the poison. Water can kill you. And in fact, there was an example several years back of a morning radio show having a contest of who could drink the most water. And the dude, was chugging gallons and gallons and gallons and he died. So literally dosage is everything.
Is that morning shows are dangerous. That's my take.
Well, I wasn't talking about those who just died from morning shows, which is in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Morning radio shows.
I've almost snuffed it several times being on morning radio shows.
Yeah. Oh, well, then that's another thing where you want to kill yourself because you're on morning radio. Yeah, I've been through that too. But anyway, I want to let you guys know to back off the Red Bull and the Celsius because I love you guys and I care about you.
Drink out of Rock Creek Park instead of
drink out of Rock Creek Park, and too high a dosage of sunshine can also kill you as well. So,
that's why I live in a bat cave.
All right, folks, we're wrapping up, but I will be back with a live stream Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. But also, I hope you check out the newest episode of Unredacted Tonight. I hope you help me keep that show going. Just share it with your friends. Let people know that Redacted Tonight is back. And and I started. Well, I'm not gonna make it. I'm doing a slow rollout of the new YouTube channel to get some subscribers over there, but it's too confusing. I'm going to make a better link for it, so I'm not going to do it right now. Anyway, but you can get it at leecamp.com/unredacted is where you can get the full unredacted playlist, and I hope you'll check it out. And check out Eleanor's newest column at
eleanorgoldfield.substack.com. I also love all of the health advice that folks are throwing in there, like drink out of the Hudson. That's solid.
I like Hirachnu says we are dying every single day.
I mean, from the moment you're born,
true.
dude.
From the moment you're born, you just start dying, which sucks.
On that
positive note, hey folks, everybody dies. All right, good night. Tip your wait staff. I'll see you Monday and keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. while I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha.